Let's start with a number, 1 in 3. That's a pretty staggering statistic, right? But what does it actually represent?
It means that a third of all adults across the entire globe are navigating their lives with a permanent health condition. We're talking about everything from diabetes to lupus to long COVID. This isn't some small niche issue. This is a massive, shared human experience.
You know, we talk a lot about the medical side of it all, the treatments, the symptoms, but what about the person inside? What happens to your sense of self when the fundamental trust you have with your own body just breaks? How does that reshape who you believe you are? That's what we're going to dive into. Researchers actually describe the aftermath of a chronic diagnosis as a profound interruption of your identity. It's like the story you've been telling yourself your whole life suddenly gets a new, completely unwelcome plot twist.
This feeling is so common, it actually has a name in the research: the broken self. It's that gut-wrenching experience where you feel like who you are has just been fragmented. That clear line connecting your past, present, and future self, it feels shattered. It's basically an earthquake for your identity. To make this a little less abstract, let's talk about Fiona from a case study on this very topic. Fiona lives with alopecia, and for her hair wasn't just hair. It was her joy, a core part of who she was. So losing it wasn't just a physical change. She called it the start of a deep, long mourning process for the person she used to be.
Okay, so if your sense of self feels broken, what happens next? You don't just stay there, right? You begin this incredible, deliberate process of psychological reconstruction. And researchers have a term for it. They call it identity work. It's the conscious effort to build a new, meaningful self from the ground up. And this identity work tends to follow a 3-phase journey. It all starts with confronting that broken self. From there, people start to envision an ideal self. Now, this isn't about pretending the illness is gone. It's about imagining a version of yourself who can still live a valuable life, but with it. The final goal is to build a meaningful self, one that actually integrates this new reality into a whole new identity. And you can just see the stark contrast here. The past self usually feels whole, continuous, defined by what you could do. The broken self, on the other hand, feels fragmented, defined by what you've lost. The entire journey, really, is about trying to bridge that massive gap. So the big question is, how do you actually build that bridge? Well, a lot of the research points to a framework from Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor, and he identified 3 key pathways to finding meaning even in the face of incredible suffering. Let's break them down.
All right, so the 3 paths are: first, creative values. This is about finding purpose by doing something, by making something. Second, experiential values. This is finding meaning in connection, whether it's with other people, with nature, or with art. And finally, there are attitudinal values. Frankl saw this as our ultimate freedom, the ability to choose our perspective no matter what our circumstances are.
And we can see these paths in action in people's real lives. Remember Fiona? She found her way through that creative path. She left the corporate world and poured all her energy into her art. It became, in her words, her real work, and it gave her a whole new source of identity, one that wasn't tied to her past. Then there was another person in the study, Dwayne. He found meaning through the experiential path. His identity became rooted in his connections, his role in his family, his church community, even the folks at his gym. Those relationships gave him a sense of belonging that his illness just couldn't take away. And then there's the attitudinal path, which is just so powerful. It was expressed beautifully by a woman named Dina. She chose to reframe her entire experience, seeing the broken glass shards of her life not as damage, but as the raw material to build an awesome mosaic. It's a perspective that isn't about ignoring the pain, but about transforming it.
Now, this whole deeply personal internal process of rebuilding an identity, it's finding a very public, very modern stage. And today, one of the biggest places this is all happening is on TikTok.
It's so fascinating that a study actually set out to understand this. Researchers analyzed 160 TikTok videos under the chronic illness hashtag to see exactly how people were using the platform to navigate their lives and do this identity work out loud for the whole world to see. And they found people aren't just talking, they're using the entire creative suite of the platform. Over 3/4 of the videos use text overlays to add commentary. 70% use music to set a mood or join a trend. Some even use roleplay to act out difficult conversations, sharing their experience in a really dynamic way. So what's the goal of all this public sharing? It really comes down to 2 things: raising awareness for people on the outside and building solidarity for those on the inside. It's about creating and normalizing what one user perfectly called a sick normal. This quote from a TikTok creator just gets right to the heart of it. They explain that words we all use, like exhaustion, mean completely different things to different people. What a healthy person might call exhaustion is another person's baseline. It's where their day starts. And that's the new reality they're trying to explain to the world.
And they do this with incredible creativity. One user made a point-of-view video with a video game-style energy bar over their head. It starts the day at 50%, and you just watch it drain with every single activity, from working to just meeting a friend.
They also use the platform to combat the stigma around invisible illnesses. A huge constant theme is that frustration of being told, "But you look fine," or being accused of faking it just because their struggle isn't something you can immediately see.
And they challenge really specific stereotypes too. For example, ambulatory wheelchair users will share videos explaining that needing a wheelchair for fatigue or distance doesn't mean they're physically unable to stand or walk a few steps. They're actively pushing back against common misconceptions.
But at the end of the day, the most important thing all this sharing does is build community. As one user put it, the whole point of sharing their own struggles is to show others that they are not the only one. It's his powerful public declaration that says, "You are not alone in this." Which really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Whether it's happening through quiet, internal reflection or a viral TikTok video, this is all a form of storytelling. So the question becomes, if our identity is the story we tell ourselves about who we are, how do we all learn to become better authors when the plot of our lives takes a turn we never, ever expected?